Okay, so part two is my story about burnout. So when I was working, I worked really long hours. I was in school, I was a head teacher. I was in school before everybody else, and I was the last person to leave the building. I was being paid a lot as a head teacher, and I felt it was really important that I worked harder than everybody else, but also that I took care of everybody else as well. When I got home, usually around 7:30 in the evening, I'd have a bite to eat, and then I'd just crack on with my work. I wouldn't get changed out of my work clothes. I'd work till about 10:30, 11, and at 6 a.m. I would be back at my laptop sending emails. And it was like I was addicted to working. And the idea of a holiday was really stressful for me because it was actually really anxiety inducing when I stopped working. So it was just much easier to keep going. And as far back as 2014, 2015, and 2017, I had separate visits to the doctor. On each occasion, the doctor said that I was suffering from burnout and I needed to have a better work-life balance. But I'd stopped running, I'd stopped seeing my friends, and my weekends just involved cleaning, shopping, and then preparing the work for the next week, as well as the impending Ofsted visit, because they were always about to inspect the school. And I was driven by fear. I had to keep going. You see, I was a single parent with two daughters, and I had to support them and provide for them, which I wanted to do. I had a mortgage and I had bills to pay. So there was no option for me to stop. It was like there was no way out of this prison that I'd created for myself. And in 2017, on top of that, I started the menopause. I'd been promoted again so that I was responsible for two schools, and I had incredible pressure. But my body was caving in. It was like it just couldn't support me anymore. And at weekends, I would just crawl into bed exhausted and having the anxiety that the menopause brings. And I would just get my laptop and I would just work from my bed. And the house was neglected. The garden was overgrown. My daughters were so just considerate. They just worked hard and they didn't want to trouble me because of the stress that I was already under. And also my brain was just too full that it couldn't compute anything that they were saying. I wasn't able to listen anymore. And I used to wake up on Sunday mornings at 4 a.m. shaking with the exhaustion and anxiety. So I'd get up and by 6:30, I was back on my laptop working. My boss would sit me down now and again and he'd tell me that I needed to relax more. I needed to watch Netflix and take my daughters out and practice yoga. And so I used to nod, and for a few days I tried to change my ways of being. But do you know what? The habits just came back, because if I started to relax even slightly and started to feel, then that was dangerous. I had to block any feeling in order to survive. So I just didn't see that I was actually in that state of delusion. I followed my to-do list and I kept my blinkers on. And the work was getting harder because I was getting slower. I was getting more anxious, more controlling, and I found that I got skin rashes, I barely ate, and my hair was even falling out. And when I asked for advice from HR about my stress and that of my senior leadership team, I was again told to just relax, watch more television, and just, work less. There was no recognition that there was an executive sat in front of them who had all the signs of burnout. Then suddenly, one day, I hit a wall. I was driving to work and I was crying and shaking. I pulled up on the drive and I knew that I couldn't go in the building. I had to just turn round, go home, get into bed and ring the doctor. And I never went back to work ever again. And so how did I move on from burnout? Well, it's still with me, but I'm learning to manage it. And I've gone through stages from disconnection to re-evolution. So stage one was letting go. Stepping off the hamster wheel and trying to get out of my frantic mind. Step two is what I'd call sleepwalking. I'd just been advised to just rest, take a very short walk, and eat one decent meal a day, which I hadn't been doing for years. My head was full of cotton wool. Stage three was sorting and sifting, decluttering the piles of work that had been hung around me for years and beginning to bring some light and some beauty and space into my home so that it felt like a home for the first time and I was able to relax. Stage 4 was reconnecting with nature, with animals, with friends, and most importantly, with my family, and having the comfort of my cats around as well, and noticing the beauty in the tiniest moments in nature, and I'm beginning to feel the tiniest flicker of joy. That helped because I'd started to practice mindfulness again. Stage 5 was reconnecting with creativity. I started to listen to music, to dance, to write poetry and a play. And I felt I'd begun to be re-empowered through discovering my inner voice. I started practicing Kundalini yoga, which was another way of reconnecting with my inner creativity. Stage 6 was realigning with my values and my purpose for living. So I trained as a mindfulness teacher, a coach, and a Kundalini yoga teacher so that there was a life-work balance. And I was able to use what I was learning to support others in a similar situation. And stage 7 is about re-evolution. There's no roadmap. So it's about living every day with intention and conscious action. Listening to your inner voice and being mindful, discerning, taking your time, doing one thing at a time. Because that's what life is made up of. Tiny steps towards reconnecting, realigning, re-empowering, and re-evolving who you really are. So if you feel burnout setting in and you feel demoralized or exhausted, it's best for the sake of everyone, if you can, to withdraw and start to restore yourself.
Thank you so much for a very inspirational speech. I love it. It was